All right, this video is a little bit late. I've been meaning to do this for a few weeks now, but about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Libertarian Party of Canada had its national convention in Ottawa, and a young man spoke there, a member of the Conservative Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier's Atlantic campaign manager, a young fellow, young man by the name of Clinton Desveaux, very sharp, very articulate, spoke passionately about ending supply management and getting government out of centrally planning our economy. Very principled young man, very liberty-oriented young man, and I was hoping to talk to you, Clinton, at the convention. Didn't get a chance to. You had places to go, but I'm talking to you now publicly. Clinton, this is my challenge to you. It's time to dump the zeros and get with heroes. I want you to rip up your Conservative Party of Canada card and join the Libertarian Party of Canada. Because I believe, and I think you understand this, that the CPC represents an existential threat to our nation. And in my opinion, they're even more dangerous than the Liberals, because we know the Liberals are terrible. We know they love big government. They don't claim to want to do anything more than have the government more entwined in our lives. They're not pretending to be, bastions of liberty or something like that. The CPC, on the other hand, talks a big liberty game, but on the same time, they're opposing cannabis legalization. They're complaining that the Liberals aren't punishing Canadians hard enough with tariffs. They support supply management. They have no problem at all using the state to impose their will, as long as the government is ruling like a daddy instead of like a mummy, like the Liberals want. And even more than that, the CPC isn't even tackling any important issues. I mean, they're essentially talking about rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic while our ship is headed towards a friggin' iceberg. I mean, they're railing hard against all the stupid ways the Trudeau government is arranging the deck chairs. They're focusing the attention of Canadians on all the stupid ways that the Liberals are rearranging the deck chairs. And they're proposing a slightly more sane way of arranging the deck chairs. And they're provoking a lot of debate about how the deck chairs ought to be properly arranged. And this is what makes them dangerous. Our ship is headed towards an iceberg, and they're distracting us with these insignificant issues. And frankly, as much as I loved Bernier's campaign for leadership and its focus on liberty, let's face it, supply management is a relatively minor issue compared to if we're triaging what the issues are in Canada. I mean, Canadians are faced with over $4 trillion in unfunded liabilities. $4 trillion. And this includes entitlements that we don't know how we're going to pay, that disproportionately affect the most vulnerable people in our society: seniors, sick and injured, handicapped, children. This is a house of cards held up by Ponzi scheme economics. And I haven't heard word one from Conservatives about how they're going to address this looming catastrophe. We're punished for saving and investing in the future, and we're incentivized to borrow and spend thanks to Keynesian monetary policy that the Conservative Party of Canada signs off on heartily. We've almost sold off our entire reserve of gold. How many people know that? Are the Conservatives raising alarm bells about that? Our dollar is pegged to the fragile and broken U.S. dollar. I mean, the U.S. government debt is over $20 trillion and growing. Trump just recently signed off on $1.3 trillion worth of deficit spending. And all of this debt has to be serviced either by increasing taxes or increasing the money supply. So since Trump is cutting taxes, that means that the U.S. dollar is getting more and more worthless. It's a mathematically unsustainable model. You know as well as I do that fiat money and the currency we have from our fractional reserve system vis-a-vis the central banking system is unsustainable. It's debt-based, and it has to end. This is why fiat currency has only ever historically had a lifespan of about 100 years, and we're just over that 100-year mark now. So catastrophe is looming. But are conservatives sounding the alarm on this? No, they aren't even mentioning the iceberg we're about to hit. But what are our conservative saviors doing? Well, Doug Ford is getting rid of an arguably ridiculous sex ed program in the provincial curriculum. Great, I guess. But what he isn't doing is addressing the fundamental problem with public schools, that they are government-run propaganda machines designed to dumb down a population into subservience. This is what they were explicitly designed for when they were born in Prussia. This is what the model was imported to North America to do. They aren't designed to create free-thinking, actualized citizens. They're institutions that are designed to get you to memorize the facts government wants you to memorize and then regurgitate them rote for a test. And these are institutions that are filled with leftists and Marxists. They're factories of child abuse and predation. I mean, if you think child abuse in the Catholic Church is bad, you ought to look at the stats for public schools. Anyways, to a modern conservative, the problem isn't with public schools, it's with the curriculum, and the people in charge. We just have to run those public schools more like a daddy instead of a mummy, and then things will be more sane. So fantastic. We'll have a slightly less insane curriculum for the next few years while the conservatives are in charge. And then when the liberals get back in power, we'll double down on it and government will continue to grow. And this is the problem. Government has continued to grow even when we've had a conservative government. And so in my opinion, the only thing more disastrous than another term of Trudeau would be for the CPC to gain power and for the reformation of the conservative movement to be held back another 4 to 8 years. We need conservatives who care about liberty to stop rearranging deck chairs, get down to business of steering the ship away from disaster. The only way that's going to happen is if we kill the Conservative Party of Canada and for a new phoenix to rise from its ashes. So if you understand that it's time to stop rearranging deck chairs, Clinton, and this goes to all other Maxime Bernier supporters and campaign workers, and if it's time to stop distracting the Canadian people with meaningless debates, and it's time to ignite meaningful reformation in Canadian culture and politics that averts impending disaster and puts us on the road to prosperity and flourishing, then I think you know what you need to do. Dump the zeros, get with heroes. We owe it to our children.